Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Creepy things and urban legends in your city? Also, area code thread. Maybe some of us can go check these things out and report back to /x/ with results.
I used to work as a bouncer at a bar in a mid-sized city in the US. One night was a Halloween costume party night. As an aside, when you're trying to check IDs, it is awful trying to figure out if the girl under a pound of makeup is the person on the picture or not. Lots of people get annoyed at being asked to remove masks for a moment so I could see their faces while checking IDs to let them in. Standard stuff. So we were normally a two-man crew, mostly working the door, and when things got slow, one of us would do a patrol inside. Help clean up some of the empty bottles, make sure no one was being crazy and starting fights. Mainly so people saw us moving around the crowd more than anything else and remembered we still had a security presence. So while my coworker is doing this, I'm working the door by myself. I think I started a cigarette when this taxi cab pulled up. I snubbed my cigarette and took up position in front of the door and watched as this abnormal freak unfolded out of the cab. It had enormous legs. The man was tall enough to begin with at easily 6'6", but he had a large top hat that made him over 7 foot, and his makeup was done so freakishly it changed the entire structure of his face. I've never in my life had my hackles raised like that. Every instinct in my body screamed, "Fight, fight, kill this monster." Attack in a way I've never felt before or after. I felt so unnerved I actually took up a fighting stance, got low and ready, and challenged him for an ID before he got within 6 feet of me. He called me by name. "Anon, you know me. I'm ex-Anon, the bartender that works here." I tried taking the closer look. The one he claimed to be was our largest bartender and a big guy, but this guy was humongous in a way I cannot adequately describe here. I made him give me the ID, much to his annoyance, but I hated taking my eyes off of this freak to even look at it to make sure it was legit. So my coworker comes back after about 30 seconds or a minute, and I'm still wildly spooked by the encounter. Immediately I ask him if he recognized the freak as ex-Anon bartender, and he inquires, "What freak?" So we go inside, and the crowd is lively and drunk and having fun, but this dude is nowhere to be seen. There's no way he wouldn't be towering over the people around him if he was standing, and even at the tables there was no giant. I tried looking on our back patio and behind the bar, but this dude was simply gone. The biggest man I've ever seen in my life, and he disappeared without a trace. I never saw him again.
In Corona, California, there once was a road known by most locals as the Never-Ending Road. Specifically, the road's true name was Lester Road. Now, over 20 years later, the landscape of Corona has changed, and the Never-Ending Road is no more. However, years ago, Lester Road was an unlit road that people claimed became a never-ending road when driven at night. The people who made such a drive were never seen from again. The legend became so well known that people refused to even drive Lester Road during the day. One night, like many teens my age, I drove up Lester Road, but only a short distance, and in my headlights, it did look like it went on forever. Frightened, I quickly turned around, because if I continued up the road, I may never return again. Perpetuation of the legend convinced local law enforcement to investigate. Lester Road took a sharp left turn at its end, and there were no guardrails. Beyond the curve lay a canyon, and on the other side of the canyon was another road that lined up so well with Leicester Road that when viewed from the correct angle, especially at night, the canyon vanished from sight, and the road seemed to continue on up and over the hill on the other side of the canyon. Upon investigation of the canyon, dozens of cars were found, fallen to their doom, with the decomposing bodies of the victims still strapped to their seats. That's the only one I've heard, besides a Gravity Hill one.
Work third shift at local McDonald's. Get off at 5 a.m. Getting a free meal and a drink from the pop machine. A middle-aged customer walks up behind and says, "I feel really peaceful vibes from you, man. You're a really peaceful guy." And shit like that. Tired as fuck from working 8 hours straight with no break, so I think I just smiled and said thanks and went about my business. Turn around after getting all my stuff, and the guy's talking shit to my co-workers about me even though I didn't really talk to him. Next day, the same customer comes in right when I'm about to leave. He's just reading the paper and eating breakfast. Say hi to him, and he just looks down at his paper and mumbles something. Walk out of the building. I turn around and look at the building, and as soon as I do, the guy whips his head around and looks directly at me fast as fuck with his eyes bulging out. Think it's pretty weird and just walk to my car.
334 Auburn, Alabama. There is supposedly a ghost of a Confederate soldier that used to inhabit the little chapel of the Presbyterian Church across the street from Samford Clock Tower. The University Theater Department would have rehearsals and some shows there. Unless someone left some sort of suite in the rafters, something would happen that would totally screw up the play. Beams would fall, light bulbs burned out and sometimes exploded, paint would be thrown, sound systems would get creepy EVPs and fail. They figured out whoever did this stopped when an offering of candy or a cookie was made above the light fixtures, and a broken part of the catwalk no one ventured to. An empty napkin or wrapper was discovered after a successful show. Once a new theater was built, the group thought they no longer had to worry about Sydney. However, their performances were soon met with the same maladies, until an offering of candy was made on the top rung of a ladder that was never used that led to the outside roof. Some performers see a man wearing an old gray cap in the empty balcony rows, leaning back and resting his feet on the seat in front of him.
Okay, I also posted this one in a thread in /out/ many months ago. Some context. Grandpa owned large areas of land in the countryside that were used for farming and cattle, and some parts straight up lead into the woods and the hills. With a big bunch of my cousins, we walked almost every mile of it. We would be gone for hours and come back before sundown. Be me, aged 6, with like 8 of my cousins, going in the woods to a part where there was a small hill next to a flat area where we played. We get there. We look at the hill. There's a small stone castle-looking thing with a small wooden door and a small tower halfway inside of it with a twisted tree sticking out of it. We what the fuck hard. We've been here 100 times and never saw it. The door was like 3.5 feet. Wood with iron, looked medieval. We couldn't open it. After a while, we just started playing around and on it. We got tired and returned. I tell Grandpa I saw a castle in the hill inside the woods. He looks at me. He says, "The stone one with the small door and a tower?" I nod. "So you've seen it, Pa." He tells me about how he first bought the land. He explored it on foot for a few days, camping and hunting with a rifle and his knife. He's walking near the edge of the property and sees it on a clearing. He walks over, gun in hand, thinking some fucker was living off his property. He gets close and sees how small everything is. He tries to open the door, but it won't budge. He decides to leave and return later. A week passes, and he returns on horseback with a few friends and tools. But he didn't tell them about it. He just told them to come along for the adventure. But he wanted to break the door and see what was inside. He gets to the clearing. Nothing. The grass in the clearing wasn't even flat. He turns around and leaves. He doesn't want to look crazy to his friends. He said he had seen it on other occasions, but didn't mess with it. He says not to fuck with it at all, and tells my cousins to do the same. I go with more cousins to the hill. It was gone. Spooked. B13. In countryside, one of Grandpa's pieces of land, very early, with 4 cousins and older brother. Bored, so go into woods to kill some time. Decide to climb to the tallest hill. After a few hours walking, get there. Resting in shade of trees. I begin to feel weird. Can't really put my finger on it, so say nothing. Look at cousin, he asks. Does anyone else think the air feels weird? We all say yeah. Noise in the forest stops dead silent. We all realize. Begin to hear a low buzzing that came from all around. Looking around, trying to find the source of the noise. It's getting louder, and the air feels weirder. Hair on back of neck standing up. Also on arms. And legs. WTF is going on .jpg. Realize it feels just like static from an old TV, but 1,000 times stronger. Could feel it in the skull. Air felt almost dense. Move from shade and look for something on top of trees. See a bright silver-colored ball just standing there in the air without moving or bobbing. Shout. Cousins run over and stare at it like dumbasses too. It felt like it got louder the more we stared. The oldest one of us snaps out of it and pushes and pulls out of there. Get back to the farm. Mom and aunties ask if saw anything cool. We all look at each other. Say no. Have lunch and forget about it for years until a few days ago. I think it was aliens.
Western Australian here. I'm originally from a town called Albany, which is basically in the middle of nowhere. It's where the Anzacs, Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, originally departed from during World War II, if you're into that kind of thing. Anyways, there's a jail here built in 1852. It was made for imperial convicts, artisans, skilled builders to help build the newly settled Australia. A few years later, a women's section was built, and it was still in common usage for prisoners. Growing up, I'd hang around the Old Gaol, as everyone referred to it. Obviously, by this point it was run down, but it was something of a tourist attraction because of how bloody creepy the entire complex was. From the glass stuck into the top of brick walls to stop prisoners escaping, to the endless dark hallways with mannequins in random cells to represent what it might have been like. This place was serious nightmare fuel. I have no idea why my parents or grandparents thought it was a good idea for me to hang around here. Anyways, a rather popular legend was told to me as a kid. After I was told about it, I stopped hanging around there. A few years after the women's block was built, a woman, a mother of two's husband, died. She was obviously devastated. A month after the death, people around town started talking about how she whispered to herself when she thought no one was listening. Another month after this, her 2 children died. She had put some kind of poison, I can't remember what it was, into her kids' food and given it to them. When they, the police I assume, found her, she was stroking both her, now long dead, kids' hair and muttering. She was very quickly sent to prison. She had this odd cell. I remember seeing it. It was almost half outside and half inside. Her work was sewing or weaving, something like that. There was equipment there for her to work. That's the point. She was there for quite a long time before she eventually offed herself. It said her ghost still inhabits the cell block and searches for children.
We have a couple of them in this town. The White Lady. Following the execution of King Charles I, Oliver Cromwell ordered General Lilburne north to police Scotland. Thus, in 1651, he requisitioned Kinneil House as his headquarters. When ordered north, General Lilburne had recently married. Reluctant to leave Lady Alice behind, he decided to bring her with him. Alas, his marriage was not a happy one, and he frequently quarreled with his homesick young bride, who pleaded with him to let her return to England. To teach Lady Alice a lesson, the general ordered that she should be locked in an attic room on the west side of the building overlooking the rocky ravine through which flows the Gil Burn. The resourceful Lady Lilburne managed to escape wearing only a white nightgown, but was quickly recaptured and once again imprisoned in the attic. In desperation, she flung herself out of the window to her death on the rocks almost 200 feet below. Another unsubstantiated local version of this legend is that she tried to elope with her lover, a young officer who helped her to escape. Unfortunately, they were caught, and she was again imprisoned. The officer was not so lucky and was entombed alive in a hollow tree. It was on hearing this news that Lady Lilburne flung herself into the Gil Burn. The story did not end with her untimely death. Her ghost, the aptly named White Lady, can be seen vainly searching the woods and old mansion house for her lover. As recently as 1968, crowds gathered outside Kinneil House because of eerie noises coming from the empty mansion. Press and TV were present, with the celebrated TV reporter Bill Tennant on the scene, only to find that the culprit was an asthmatic pigeon. The Graveyard Band. A small urban legend in which, when the graveyard is filled up, the local council removes the bodies and uses the underground abandoned mine network to move and dispose of them. Sometimes you can hear a band playing at 2 a.m. at the graveyard.
262. There's an old myth about a figure that stalks people during severe winter weather. I had a personal experience with this, and it scared the shit out of me. A massive blizzard hit southeast Wisconsin a few years back. It dumped about 4 feet of snow on the area. There was barely any visibility, howling wind, sub-zero temperatures, the works. I was driving back from getting my girlfriend's car unstuck around 2 a.m. I parked my sedan at the end of my long driveway due to 2 feet of snow blocking the way. By this time, the snowfall had died down, but the wind was still howling like mad. I started walking up my 500-foot driveway, rural house in the woods, through the snow. I felt like I was being watched. I looked over my shoulder and saw a dark 6-foot-plus figure standing on our berm, 100 feet away. I freaked the fuck out and ran as fast as I could through the deep snow. I finally reached the door, locked myself inside, and checked out the window. The dark figure was now standing in my front yard facing me, and it didn't even have a winter coat on. Keep in mind it was -10 outside, not counting wind chill. I ran upstairs, grabbed my Mossberg 590A1 shotgun, and tried calling 911, but I got no service due to the storm. I decided that I should set myself up at the only choke point in my house, which is the top of the stairs. I sat down at the top with my shotgun and phone and saw the guy through the windows on each side of the front door. The stairs faced the door. The wind picked up a few minutes later, and the snow obscured the figure. I waited till morning at the top of those stairs and reported what happened to the cops after the phone lines were brought back up. I decided to venture outside around 10 a.m. when the sun was up, but there was no trace of the figure. I still have no idea if the figure was real or if it was my imagination, but the memory still scares the shit out of me to this day.
This post is probably disappointing, but I invite anyone to share funny stories of the same genre if they ever happen to them. Anyone else was a huge coward as a kid? I remember when I was 10, I'd hang out with this kid a bit older than I was, who would constantly make me believe the most messed up shit. For instance, we'd always go exploring in the city. It's full of abandoned places, factories, empty terrains, and creepy forests. As a matter of fact, I often go back there alone to all these places I went to as a kid for kicks, mostly just to overcome all the fear that I had about these places when I was a kid. One time, we were exploring a very old factory that's supposedly haunted. Some of its wings are still operational, but most of the buildings and floors are totally abandoned. My mom used to work at one of them, and she and many of her co-workers confirmed having seen ghosts and shit. The place belongs to some rich family that lives in a huge-ass manor right by the factory. It's been confirmed that there are tunnels under the factory that lead to the mansion, and possibly a bunker, since that place was built during World War II. So, anyways, I'm deviating. We were exploring a part that was abandoned, and as usual, my friend would take great pleasure in making me shit my pants by saying there were demons living there, and that they'd take me to hell if he wasn't there. He claimed to have some great angel powers and shit, so I'm already pissing my pants by now. But then we see some of the people working there who saw us and start coming after us. We bail out of there and run through an empty field that's right across a bridge protected by a fence with barbed wire. We manage to get under the fence and we run. We got to the city's high school after a while of running. This asshole doesn't lose a single minute to start telling me about vampires living there, and that we're in great danger. The little freak probably enjoyed this too. For the full year I hung around with him, he did this sick shit. He'd make me believe evil angels were after us in our sleep when I'd sleep at his place. He made me believe he had a cursed coin that was nothing more than a peso or some shit. And he made me and another gullible kid do a ritual while burying the coin as I was scared shitless. He made me and a lot of other kids believe all sorts of fucked up shit for his enjoyment. It was so long ago, but I'd punch him in the face if I met him today. Some sort of late payback because he totally deserved it back then. Looking back at it, I was easily scared. There is one thing I owe to him, though, making me aware of all these great old places in my little shitty, boring town. If you wonder where it is, it's a small town in Quebec, Canada. Yes, I am one of dem frogs assholes from French Canada.
610 here. About 20 minutes west of me is a place known as Satanville, along a road referred to as the Devil's Road, formal name Cossert Road. It's a very narrow road through a wooded area, although many of the trees have been removed. For a good part of the road, the trees take on an odd growth pattern. They bend away from the road. On another part, they all bend in a certain direction. There's a stone mansion in the woods at this part once owned by the DuPont family, where they supposedly once married their cousins to keep the wealth in the family. Now it's associated with the common urban legends that cling to rural roads throughout the country. Satan worshippers, the Klan, the mob, being chased by black SUVs, etc. Probably the most famous tree is the skull tree. Years of erosion cause space beneath the roots to be exposed, which would look somewhat like a skull when seen in your headlights at night. I went down this road a few months ago and did not see the skull tree, so sadly, it might have been removed. I did not look for the stone mansion, known as the cult house, because regardless of whether or not any of the stories are true, it is private property.
I live in the town that Aleister Crowley lived in, Hastings, England. The story of his arrest is as follows. One night, his neighbours could hear creepy sounds chanting and the sound of some sort of ritual, seemingly being performed by himself and a few others. The neighbours later heard screaming, and then dead silence, so the police were called. The building was searched. All that was found was Aleister Crowley in a corner of a room, curled up, mumbling rubbish, completely insane, completely naked, and surrounded by the corpses of his two friends who had had all the liquids from their bodies completely drained. Apparently, they had attempted a ritual in the night to summon the devil, and that was pretty much the end of Aleister Crowley. The story ends with him obviously being arrested. I don't know how true this is, obviously, but still, a creepy as fuck story. Also, I live near the house he once lived in, and he supposedly put a curse on the land that no one would ever live there after him, and no one has yet. The land is literally ruins right now, but there are plans to start building there again. Also, the houses next to them aren't allowed to be housed by anyone with children. Many people have been refused housing there because supposedly young children are greatly affected by the energies left behind by Crowley.
Go to the Meadows with high school friends to drink. It's a small valley of haying fields on the edge of town. The sun just went down. It's twilight. I see a small white light in the sky. It seemed about a quarter mile away and 500 feet overhead. Meh. It's just a drone. Suddenly I realize everything is quiet. The crickets stopped. The birds too. The atmosphere feels twice as thick. Dude, what the fuck? We're all like deer in headlights for a good 10 seconds staring at this thing. Finally I'm like, let's get the fuck out of here. Everyone gets in the car. My girlfriend is suddenly crying. She says she doesn't feel good. Before I jump in, I take a look back. It's gone. The crickets and birds are chirping again. The atmosphere returns to normal. We leave, and I haven't gone back since. I don't like that area now. I almost went to the cops. But who would believe a bunch of high school drunks saw a scary light in the sky that made us feel weird? The only thing I can rationalize was that it was some kind of government black tech, maybe a sonic weapon. There is an Air Force base about 25 miles south.
Dublin, Ireland here. Got some good spooky stuff. The best is the Hellfire Club, which sits on the summit of Montpellier, which I can see from my house. It's a burnt-out husk, a stone shell. It was built in the 1700s as a hunting lodge. The ceiling was built from the remains of a cairn tomb. Then the place burnt down mysteriously and was taken over by the notorious Hellfire Club, a debauched collection of wealthy bastards who did God knows what up there, away from civilization. Among the various stories of the place, like the men killing a dwarf and rolling him down the hill, of which the body may or may not have been found in a restaurant at the bottom, and a huge black cat taking the head seat at the dining table. The story most people know, or is most told, is of the last time the building was inhabited. One night, a traveller came to the door during a bad rainstorm. The men took him in, and they were all having a great time. The variant of the story goes that either during dinner or playing cards, one of the men dropped a fork or card and went to retrieve it. Upon going under the table, he noticed the traveller's feet, or rather, hooves. Giving a cry of terror, the men leapt up, and the devil, revealed, shot up through the roof in a fireball, setting fire to the building and killing all inside, way up on the mountain, nowhere near any civilization. It decidedly burnt down, but no one really knows why to this day.
920 here. There used to be this house called Rancho de las Flores, but it was usually referred to as the Spanish house by the locals because of its architecture, which was very odd for being in eastern Wisconsin. The story went that there was a family that lived there. The father, who was a doctor, went nuts and killed his wife in front of their daughters, the number of which varied from 2 to 4, then killed the daughters. Then he cut off his wife's head with a wood-cutting axe and carried the head down the street and threw it at the stop sign there. Though the sign was replaced numerous times over the last 40 or so years, you can still see one big splatter in the middle with streaks running down from it if you take a picture of the sign at night or look at it through a night vision camera. Eventually, the city decided that the place was a nuisance and put a fence around it. When that didn't keep the teenagers out, the city tore the place down. Since it was located on an out-of-the-way road, I'm guessing the neighbors got sick of the kids going out there more frequently and loudly. I went there once when I was 15 with my brother and a friend. I didn't see anything, but it was creepy as fuck even at 1 in the afternoon. The same guy here. There's a town not far from here where there was, I haven't been up there in a few years, an old abandoned preparatory school that was formerly a seminary. There's one building out front that is very different from the rest of the buildings on the campus. It's chalk white, oblong, and the interior is completely black. Just looking at it even from a distance is creepy as fuck. The story surrounding that particular building is that that's where the priests would make their human sacrifices because they were actually occultists, not Satanists, but worshippers of some other odd being. The same thing that happened with the Spanish house happened here. More and more assholes breaking in to party and trash the place. Neighbors and police got fed up and shut the fucker down. Before that happened, though, the property was bought by a woman from Green Bay who wanted to turn it into a community center type thing. And I actually worked there for a few weeks one summer helping clean up and such. We were starting with the gym because, of course, it was a big open space. After mopping the floor, you'd turn around and there would be children's bare footprints going away from where the floor was wet, as if a little kid had just walked through the water and across the dry floor. The really odd part was that the footprints faded over distance like they normally do. We were allowed to wander the grounds and look in the buildings and whatnot, but again, I never saw anything, though I did hear what sounded like Latin chanting in the chapel. Not scary, but still odd.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.